Everyone. Thank you for jumping on today. I hope I can provide some valuable insight. As Dawn mentioned, I've owned a company called Shout Media for the last 10 years, and our specialty has become, or basically always was, social and digital media. So we don't really do a lot in the traditional way of media. We're very much focused on socials, so obviously Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn, and also digital, so Google Ads, websites, web development, app development. So you'll see today with my presentation, I'm very much focused on digital marketing strategy. That's not to say that I don't think traditional marketing is still important, and I'll kind of touch on that a little bit in the presentation. But I think that, especially with everything that's happening right now, with COVID, definitely being online and having that online presence is really, really important. So I'm going to start the presentation, and it's going to be about a 40 to 45 minute presentation, and depending on how it goes through. And then at the end, we'll have some time to have a chat, and I'm definitely available for any questions that you have. So I'll begin the presentation now. So I just want to make sure I can, oh, there we go. So as I mentioned, I think it's really important to point out that we're building this marketing strategy for 2020. If I was doing this presentation 2 years ago, I think I'd have a bit of a different presentation lined up for you, and I would focus a lot more on some of the traditional media that was prevalent then. But I think we can all agree that right now in 2020, we're really, really focusing on that online presence. And when I talk about building your marketing strategy, I'm going to talk also a little bit about just basic housekeeping items that need to be done before you actually start marketing. Because I think that as businesses, sometimes we forget to sort of get prepared for our marketing, and we sort of just jump in before really looking at what we need to do to sort of get our house in order. So 80% of small to mid-sized businesses fail to develop a marketing strategy, and it's really something that's important to build out. So it's kind of difficult in a webinar, but if I could, have a show of hands, as I do sometimes when I'm actually doing a webinar in front of real people, if I were to ask the people that are on this webinar right now, it'd be interesting to see how many people actually have a very well planned out marketing strategy. And I'm guessing that about 80% of the businesses even today would say, no, unfortunately, we don't have a strong marketing strategy built out. And it is so important to have this. I can't stress well enough how important it is. And I've kind of outlined how all the pieces fit together. And I think sometimes when we think about a marketing strategy, we really think about, ads or where we're going to place those ads. But nowadays, we have to look backwards almost and look at some of the pieces that we have together before we start that online marketing strategy. So the next thing I would need to talk about with all of you is, why do you really need a marketing strategy? Why not just, as money comes in, maybe run some ads? Or, I get this all the time. I have a lot of people that will say to me, oh, Suzanne, can you set up an ad for me? My uncle's son's hockey team needs to, we're going to sponsor that jersey, or we're going to sponsor, a program or an event. And they fail to sort of plan throughout the year. And then what ends up happening is, number one, they're just sort of throwing out money, and I call it spraying and praying, without actually having a definitive strategy. And they're not going to get the results that they would if they planned ahead. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to potentially sponsor athletes or sponsor events, but it needs to be something that's in your strategy and not something that you're just putting out last minute because somebody asks you to put out an ad or something in a publication, or you decide that you're just going to boost a Facebook post because it got some good results and you're going to hit the boost button. So before you even start to, really get comprehensive in developing that strategy, there's a few key pieces that I think are really important, and I want you to think about these before you set it up. So why you need one is, you need to understand your target audience. When you develop a marketing strategy, it's going to inspire you to look at what that target audience is. And I often say to clients, I say, well, do you really know who your target audience is? And they say, yeah, a lot of the time, it could be, our target audience is women over 40. But because we're working in such a big online world right now, and it's changing so much, we have to start to understand that it's not enough to know your target audience as male or female and the age demographic. Let's start really narrowing down your target audience. And I'll talk about this a little bit further on. But when you're looking at social and digital media, you're going to want to start to know things like, maybe my target audience is women, but maybe my target audience is women who enjoy fitness, nurses, women who are single, women who are in this profession. Or if my target audience is men, maybe we're really going to dive in deeper, and it's going to be men between this age group, or men that work in these industries, or men that like golf, or men that like hockey. So it's important when you're building that target audience to expand more than what we used to think of as a target audience, and dive deeper with digital and social marketing into what that audience really looks like. And you're going to be surprised that when you start to really look at it, there is going to be sort of what we call a persona of the person that's going to buy from you. The next thing is you want to set some goals. So you don't just want to spray and pray, you want to actually set goals. Those goals can be things like conversions, they can be sales, they can be likes, followers, interaction, engagement. But sit down before you build out that strategy and determine what are those goals. And then you want to talk about what is your ad spend. So you want to understand, what do I have for an ad spend that I want to spend, and think about that in advance. I see a lot of companies that say, okay, we've got this ad spend, but because they don't have a strategy, all of a sudden they're overspending by the time February hits, and then they don't have enough money to continue to spend throughout the rest of the months. So you really have to look at, when you're building that strategy, and I like to build it for a year with changes, obviously, what is that ad budget going to look like, and stick to that budget. Now, if you find that, your sales are increasing exponentially, then for sure you can increase this as you go along. But you want to set that up in advance and take a good look at it, so you're not overspending or underspending it as well. And then we're going to look at a little bit further on, what are your methods of advertising? So what are we going to look at? And I talk about digital, but maybe your organization doesn't need digital advertising. Maybe they still need traditional. Maybe they need a combination. Are you business to business? Are you business to consumer? So really looking at what's going to work best for your specific business. And then ultimately, what do we all want? Every single business wants to achieve sales. So when you're building out that strategy, you want to make sure that everything that you're doing, yes, you want awareness, yes, you want likes and followers, yes, you want people to engage, but sometimes I think we lose sight of that we ultimately want to achieve sales. So now that we kind of have developed why we need that strategy, let's look at building out the actual strategy. And the first thing that I'm going to start off with is some research. So I see a lot of small businesses that don't take the time to actually go in and do some really, really concise and hardcore research on who their competitors are. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I want to see before starting a marketing strategy. So what are your competitors doing? Who are they? What do they look like? Do you follow them on social media? Do you follow them on, other areas? Like, do you take a look at what they're doing? And I'll go into this a little bit further within their Facebook ads. And what are they posting? What does their content look like? What does their messaging look like? What does their voice look like? So before we want to build out anything to do with our marketing strategy, let's take a look at what our competitors are doing. And then who is their audience? There's a good chance when you're doing marketing that you might even be targeting some of the same people that they're targeting. So this dives in a little bit deeper, but when you're setting up maybe Facebook ads, you might actually want to target people that like your competitor. So something really important, and I think more important now than ever and easier now than ever, that we can really define who those competitors are. And the same thing when you're determining what your target audience is, look at who their target audience is. Is it, again, male, female, what their ages are, likes, demographic, location? Because when you start to see that they're successful and they're targeting certain areas or certain people, you can definitely follow suit and do the same thing. So I can't stress enough about, before starting, really look at who your competitors are. And I ask all of you on this webinar today, do you have a good idea of who they actually are? If not, some homework. when you've got some time, maybe over the weekend, really get down on your social media and take a look at who they are and what they're doing. And I've got a little slide up here, and it's a little bit harder to see, but I'm wondering if a lot of people on the webinar actually know that Facebook has transparency now. So when you're actually booking ads and you get into the ads platform, it's called page transparency. And I use car dealers as an example. You can actually go in and see what your competitors are posting for ads. So you can take a look at what they're doing. You can take a look at, what kind of traffic they're getting. So something really important when you're doing that research, and if anyone wants to send me a message maybe after this presentation is over, I can give you a really good idea, or I can actually walk you through how this is done so you can take a look at your competitors' ads. Really important as well is, where does your audience live? So I'm not sure who's on the webinar today, but I'm assuming it's a nice mix of companies that are focusing on business to business, excuse me, and companies that are focusing on business to consumer. So it's really important to know that you have to have a different market depending on where your audience lives. I actually have some clients that market to businesses, and then they also market to their consumers as well. So there has to be a real research component before your marketing to determine where are you going to find your audience. And I use a few examples. So business to business predominantly, and I mean business to consumer as well, we want to make sure we have a really strong Google presence. And we'll talk about that a bit later. Business to business is great with Twitter, because when you're a business focusing on other businesses, you can follow the companies that you want to do business with. You can comment on their posts. You can tag them in your posts. So Twitter is also a great tool for business to business. Obviously, LinkedIn. LinkedIn I found in Northwestern Ontario a few years ago. Again, if I was doing this in 2018, I wouldn't really focus as much on LinkedIn, but over the last few years, LinkedIn has really, really become an area where business to business has just thrived, and making sure that you're focusing on LinkedIn as well. And there's other new platforms out there as well. I'm not going to get into all of them right now, but there's some other platforms that are up and coming that really can help you with business to business. And don't forget email marketing. It's still relevant. It's still important. It's still something that you want to build out. So again, not knowing everyone that's on the webinar today, but if you are an online site that's selling products online, you want to make sure you have that hook when someone comes on your site to either get a 10% off coupon or 15% off your next order if you submit your email, or a welcome gift, whatever it is. We call it the welcome email. So you want to make sure that you're capturing those emails, and don't discount how important that is. The same thing for business to consumer. You still want to make sure that you have that email that you have right up front that pops up, that captures email to continue to market to them. Not only do you want to build that email out for marketing, but you want to use it for custom and lookalike audiences that you can build out in Facebook as well. So really making sure that you're using that email to find that audience and talk to the audience. And business to consumer, a little bit more Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube driven. So making sure that when you're setting up your marketing strategy, you know what type of platform should I be engaging on. And then I still keep in here traditional versus digital. So I'm not, again, discounting traditional. We might have an audience that is still primarily traditional, so we still want to target them. So when you're trying to decide where your audience lives, remember to still think about, if you need to, some traditional marketing as well. So now I'm ready. I've figured out what my audience is. I know what my competitors are. I know where my audience lives. What do I want to look at before I actually start the marketing strategy? I want to take a look at my branding. And this isn't an exercise in how to brand. It's just more of an exercise to make sure that you look at your branding and it's strong before you start your marketing strategy. I don't want to see clients or companies that start spending a lot of money on marketing or money on advertisements when they don't have their consistent branding all set up. So take a look to make sure that your branding is complete and consistent. Start off, obviously, is with your logo. Are you using it the same way everywhere that you're placing it? Does it have consistent colors? I see this all the time where, oh, it's okay, we'll use a different shade of blue. No, set your Pantone colors. Make sure you know what your colors are in your logo. Make sure you have consistent taglines or messaging so you're not changing them as you walk through your marketing strategy. What does your brand identity look like? What does your visual identity look like? Do you have a document that says, every time we use our logo, we never stretch it. We only use it in this context. We might use black and white on certain things. Make sure that you're using it properly on your social media platforms. So I ask everyone on the webinar today, what does your Facebook page look like? Does it have branded consistency, or is your logo a little bit skewed on the left-hand side in the icon area? Do you have maybe some improper use of your header, or is it properly branded? If you set up Twitter or LinkedIn, is that all branded the same? So really, really important to make sure that all your social media and your media platforms are also branded so that when clients start to see the marketing, they see consistency. As soon as it hits the ground, they say, oh, I remember this company. I've already been to their website. I saw them on social media, their Facebook page, and they start to create that brand awareness so they associate you with the product that you sell. So an example of a client that we have, Gear Up for Outdoors. A lot of you have probably already heard of Gear Up for Outdoors. Very, very consistent with their branding. So every single post that they do looks the same. Their website looks the same. Their social media looks the same. And they have actual brand identity to make sure that the green is always the right green. The fonts are always the right font. So just making sure that before you start that strategy, all of your branding is consistent. Another example of a client that we have that actually, I think we have done a lot of work with them, but even with their own marketing that they do, they're very consistent. So their logo is always consistent. And a little quick story with Northwest Fencing, they 2 years ago were predominantly a traditional company where they were sending out flyers, they were sending out door hangers, they were mailing letters, they were doing the traditional methods of marketing, and their sales have exponentially increased by adopting more of a digital social platform, especially with this time that's happening now. And some of the key features that I just want to pull out that you can take a look at when you're doing your marketing as well is they've implemented things like online chats. They've implemented things like online estimating. So they've really embraced methods so that when their clients are touching base with them, it's very, very simple for them to do business with them. And they've got a lot of clear calls to action. And you can see that with all of their marketing is very consistent. It's branded. They don't sway from their colors. They don't go outside the lines. They pretty much stay in the same focus all the time. And this is where you start to see the consistency. So you might actually look at this and see, oh, Northwest Fencing, yes, I've seen their marketing and it all looks the same and it sends the same message. And you can see on the screen right now that I have also a little tool that they've implemented, which allows their clients to book online. So a lot of the things that you're going to be doing with your strategy are going to be driving your clients back to the website, which I'll talk about in a minute. So make sure you have a lot of those tools in place. So when your clients get to the website, it's an easy process for them. A little bit before we talk about website is about the messaging. So we've now got the branding straightened out, we've got our messaging, but remember that when you're getting your marketing strategy developed, it's not a one size fits all. So you also have to consider that your demographics might be different. So when I talk about looking at your target audience, I don't want to send the message that, well, we've got one target audience. Maybe we have a wide variety. So maybe your product is actually tailored to a wide demographic or a wide audience, which makes it a little bit more interesting for when you're doing your marketing. So when you're setting up, and I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but when you're setting up your marketing, make sure that you're targeting to the messaging to your audience. So I often see clients that will run one ad, and when they run that ad, they're kind of running it to everyone. So this is a good example of a client of ours that really tailors their ads to their audience. So when you're starting to create ads, whether it's on social media or even if it's something that you're sending out in an emailer, you want to make sure that your artwork changes based on the message. So you can see on the left, we're targeting a little bit more of a senior audience. And then on the right, we're using emojis. We're making it a little bit more fun because we're targeting families. So really making sure that however you're targeting your audiences, if it's a diverse group, change up your marketing, your ads and your creative. And I'll touch on that when I talk about, ads and creative coming forward. But I thought these were some good examples just to break through the webinar, just to give you some, creative insight into how I'd love to see when you're creating that strategy and your campaigns and content, you think about that demographic and that audience, and you build out your marketing to fit whoever those demographics are. And again, a little bit different again with families and changing it up for students. So the next thing that I look at again, and I'm still, building out all the pieces that are part of the strategy, but again, still a little bit more of that housekeeping because we don't want to start doing a lot of our marketing before a lot of these pieces are in place. So part of your marketing strategy, you need to look at your website. So before you start running your ads, make sure that the website, and again, this is part of strategy, building out a strong website is such a huge piece. And I touched on some of the things that Northwest Fencing has done, whether it's chat rooms or chat messages, or whether or not it's creative ways for people to submit contact information to get an estimate back, or whatever it is for calls to action. There's a lot of thought put into the website. If you can get that website structured and well built, that is half your battle for when you're submitting your marketing. The last thing that you want to do is drive your ads to what I call a business that doesn't look great. So I always tell clients, whether it's an e-commerce website or whether it's not an e-commerce website, this is your storefront. This is the same thing as your bricks and mortar. So if you've spent time, getting your new store all renovated and it's ready and you're ready to sell, or if your website is the only place that you're selling, make sure that all the pieces are in place. Everything about your website should tell your story. So is it user-friendly? Is it easy for people to maneuver? Does it really talk about your company properly? So when I get to your website, and I see often companies that don't really tell the story, and then when people get to the website, they kind of miss the message. So what is the story? What is your messaging? What are you offering? Front and center when I get to the website, I want to know what that story is. Have you built in some search terms and some SEO? And I won't talk too much about SEO today, but you do want to make sure that you have some search criteria in your website. So looking at what people are searching, if you're selling basketballs, well, let's make sure that basketballs is in the website built in as, search terms, and making sure that some of that is put in so that you've got some organic traffic. So when people are coming to the site, you're not always having to pay for ads. You're starting to build that organic following. If they need to buy online, can they? I see companies sometimes that are creating an online store, but they don't have somewhere for people to really buy. So it's still, send us an email and we'll get you that order. In this time that we're living in now, people want an online presence that's secure, that works properly, that is functional, and is something that they can use on their mobile device. So if you're selling your product online, or you plan to sell your product online, make that experience flawless. Connect everything properly so that the online presence is out there. So maybe you're implementing something like Shopify, to get that online presence out there, or WooCommerce, or whatever it is. But taking the time to build up that, that storefront, that bricks and mortar is so important. Does it contain up-to-date information? So as you're building out your business, so maybe you're a startup, or even if you're an existing company, does your business and your website have up-to-date information on it? So if it's got projects from 2006, those need to be updated. If there's products that you're selling that are no longer available, they need to come down. And the other thing about having that online presence is it is a lot of work. So the time that you're putting into the bricks and mortar, you've got to put the same amount of time into your online store. It takes a lot of time if you're going to generate the sales that you need to generate. And does it have the forms for leads? So if I'm running ads on social digital media and I'm driving that to the website, once I get to the website, is there an area where I can get more information easily? Is it front and center? If I need an estimate, can I get that? Is there a chat that I can start to ask information? So making sure that you've got some leads for lead generation right on the site. So jumping in again now, still building out that strategy, the important thing is social media. So it's a big component nowadays. It's probably a big reason why you're listening to the webinar today. So let's get started on building out those social media platforms. Have you built out your Facebook page, Twitter, LinkedIn? Have you set those up properly? So again, we talked about it before. Are they branded? But not just branded, do they have all the content your clients will be looking for? So I'm tasking everybody that's on the webinar here today, because I'm sure all of you have a Facebook presence. Go to your Facebook page today, and I want you to look at first hours. Are they updated? Maybe with COVID, you had to change your hours and there are shorter hours now. Has that been updated on Facebook? Do you have a post about that on Facebook, maybe pinned to the top so people come there and they see? Have you updated your About Us section in Facebook? And I mean, this applies to all your social, but right now I'm just tasking you with Facebook to start. Is there a link to your website? You know, really important. You're going to want to potentially go to the website from Facebook. If you're selling online, have you hooked up Facebook Shop with products? Really important and something that should be done. Do you have a video tab? You know, if you've got video, do you have your video on there? So really, really making sure that, again, before you're pushing ads to your social media platforms or you're posting a lot, make sure that everything's branded and set up properly. And have you created some awareness? You know, the thing about marketing when you have a social media presence is it's a lot easier to get people to engage with your product if you already have a lot of likes, followers, and awareness already. How do you do that? Well, start posting. Be active on your social media. Tag other organizations that might be interested in your product, or people that might be, or if you see something interesting that someone else is doing, you know, wow, that was great. We really enjoyed, you know, attending your presentation last week, and share that, because then you'll start to have another audience that's looking at your company saying, oh, who are these? I haven't heard of this company before. So start to create a lot of that awareness so you can build up some likes and followers to get that organic traffic before you even want to go in and get the paid traffic going. And I just put up on the screen here a little bit of a snippet of where you can see, you know, open now, hours of operation, you know, price range information. This one happens to be for Touch Unwired, so you can see at the bottom, their website is linked in, so someone can click on it. You can get directions. It has the proper addresses on there. I've had so many times where phone numbers are missing on Facebook, and that's the first place that people look to contact you, and the phone number's not on there. So I can't stress enough making sure that your social media is all functioning properly and updated before you start paying and driving ads to that. And again, who are we? Northwest Fencing has a nice little part about that here. Again, their hours, their website, and some other information about them all put into the Facebook page. So really important to make sure that you're updating that and, you know, getting that information out there before you start spending the money on ads. So again, another piece that I want to make sure that people have set up before they start to drive potentially their Google ads is a lot of companies don't realize how important it is to have your Google My Business page set up. So Google My Business is that page that you see on the right. I have an example of it right here. When someone types in your company, and a lot of times if it's not set up properly, it'll have odd photos that, you know, might be an odd angle of the back of your parking lot. It's something that Google just pulls information automatically. A lot of times the information on there isn't correct because Google's pulling it if you're not editing it, putting that information in. So in this case, you can see it's got hours of operation. It also is the home of your Google reviews. Nowadays, I don't think I have to tell everybody how important it is to make sure that you're asking your clients to leave you Google reviews. And if you don't have that set up with your Google My Business page, they're not going to be able to do that. So setting this page up before you're doing anything else is so important, and making sure it has content. It can link to your website. It can also have directions. If you dive in deeper, it has About Us sections. It has a lot of content. And it's also the first place that Google crawls to index your business and move you up organically. So before we're doing anything else, take a look at your Google My Business page. You do have to actually contact Google, and they mail you a card in the mail so that you can put your code in. And I can explain that a little bit further to anybody who hasn't claimed their Google Business page. But this is a key component to driving organic traffic, and it's a key component for having Google search and crawl your site. And also, again, super important that the reviews, people have a place to leave reviews. The unfortunate thing is if you don't claim it, the information is incorrect, and that just leads to inconsistency and a bad user experience as well. So I'm going to start building out now your ad campaigns and your creative. So backing up a little bit, we've got our branding in place. We've got our website cleaned up. All of our social media pages look good. We've got our content all in there. We've done our homework. We've set up our Google My Business page. Now let's really dive deep and build out those campaigns and that ad creative. So the first thing that I want to do when I'm building out a marketing strategy for a client, once I make sure all the other pieces are in place, is how long do you want your strategy to be? So I like to go with a year-long strategy, but some companies that are first starting out or they don't really know how their potential audience is going to engage, a year is going to be too long. So I really focus on the first 3 to 6 months, understanding that if this is the first time that you're marketing heavily, first time that you're marketing on social media or digital, or you just haven't really looked at a real structured strategy before, then maybe it's something that's only going to be a 3 to 6 month strategy. So that's really going to dictate what the rest of your content looks like, because you want to build it out for that time frame. Again, seasonal. Northwest Fencing, again, good example. During the months of, I'd say starting in December, January, they start their creative and their campaign to get people to start to build fences for the May, June, July, August season. That's because people start to think about it in the winter months, and they can start to create that traffic coming in to lock them in for their summer busy times starting as early as January. So really think about your seasons. If your business is seasonal, when are you going to start to market? Well, if your season starts in May, you're not going to start in April. You're potentially going to start getting people interested with maybe a slow start in January. So that's a really important piece to think about, is what does that look like? What do your timeframes look like? And now that your branding and messaging is complete, what do you want to achieve? So you've got this strategy that you're building out, but what do you want to achieve? And everybody has a little bit of a different perspective on what they want to achieve from their marketing. This is a client that we worked with, which is a lawn care company that's out in the Bruce Peninsula area. And I use them as an example because they started marketing for lawn care in January. And they did a very comprehensive campaign with a new website, social media. Last year they were traditional, so this is the first time they morphed into a social campaign. They started it in January, and this is the busiest year they've ever had because they spent a huge amount of their budget January, February, March, and then by the time May, June, July rolled around, they're booked up solid. So it's a good example of, depending on your business, really thinking about when you want to start that and what that strategy looks like. So with these type of companies that are seasonal, what are we going to do during our off times, which are October, November, December? Are we going to completely stop marketing? No, we're still going to put out ads. We're still going to put out some good content. We're still going to push out some ideas, maybe inspiration for the next season, but maybe the budget is a lot smaller during those off times. And a couple of little examples as well of, it doesn't always have to be about, seasonal or products or services. Maybe your marketing is promotion driven. So when you're looking at that strategy for the entire 6 months to a year, start to think about your promotions in advance. So if you're going to be having a sale during the month of June, so let's use the Gear Up for Outdoors tent sale. We're going to start to think about that in our marketing strategy at the beginning of the year, because we want to allocate so many dollars. We want to know when we're going to start. We want to have our creative ready. And having your creative ready at the beginning of the year for the entire year is going to save you so much money, because you're not last minute deciding what your campaign is going to be. And that's where I kind of get into determining what you want to achieve. So is it going to be because you want to sell the most at the promotion that you're running in May? Is it, no, I just want to generate leads. You know what? I want to create leads. I'm not so concerned with this promotion during my marketing strategy for sales. I just want to start getting some leads. Maybe I'm not ready to reach out to all of them yet, but I want to start to create some engagement and some traffic. And then maybe I want to get ready for some strong follow-up with a subsequent campaign a few weeks later. Do I just want conversions? Straight. I want someone to click on an ad, go to the website, buy my product. Quick conversion. That's a different campaign altogether. Or maybe I just want awareness. You know what? I'm a new company coming in. Maybe, I'm too cold. I like to look at it as cold, warm, hot traffic. Maybe it's too cold for me to assume that customers are going to know me and buy right away. So I want to warm them up. So I'm going to start some of my campaigns with what I call cold campaigns, just letting people know that my company is out there. And I want to determine if it's, a grand opening, or if it's, new products or new services. I want to put that all in at the beginning, because I'm going to spend a lot less money when I think about that and time and plan that out at the beginning. So again, for each promotion that I'm doing, how long will these campaigns run? Am I going to run an awareness campaign from January to February? Am I going to overlap that with another campaign from February to March? Really looking at that calendar and figuring out how long those campaigns are going to run. And then what are my assets with this campaign? Maybe I'm going to create a small video. Maybe I'm going to do just email blasts. Maybe I'm going to do a combination. Maybe I'm going to do some photography. So what do the assets look like prior to actually launching the campaign? How am I developing them? And again, I always say this, developing the assets in advance saves a lot of time and money. So when you're building out this strategy, well, for the promotion that we're running in April, let's do a great video. We're going to use that as an asset, and we'll do email blasts, and we'll spend this much on Facebook ads. But for the campaign that we're doing in October, it's a little bit of a quieter time for us. But you know what? We've got a new product. So maybe for that one, we're just going to use some high-res photography to show the new product that we've developed. So thinking about all of these pieces, I think you can start to see how you want to put them together when you're creating your strategy, instead of thinking about them as you're going along. Because you know what happens as small business owners? We get busy, and then we don't have time to do it. And then what kind of platforms are we going to be on? Well, again, we might need to have a little bit of traditional for our older clients, or some that are not so savvy on digital, or we might be completely digital. I've showed a little snippet of a calendar because I want to put the budget in there, and I want to stick to the budget. I want to build out that calendar that we've talked about. So how long are we running them? What day are we starting Facebook ads? What day are we turning off Facebook ads? What day are we going to start developing our Google ads? We want to put that all in the calendar. We want to book all our ads and schedule them, not necessarily that far in advance, but we want to get ready to do that. And then we can go ahead and start to implement our campaigns that we've developed at the beginning of the year and keep running that. And then with paid digital advertising, I get into the next level, which is, well, we've got all of our creative set up. We've got all of our campaigns organized. We know what we're going to run for promotions. We've got our calendar set up for the whole year. Now, let's talk about paid advertising. I find with a lot of companies that organic traffic is something that everybody is so used to on social media. Well, I put up an Instagram post, or I've got a Facebook post up for that. But the amount of traffic that you will get with paying for ads is monumental compared to just having ads out there, having posts out there that are not paid for. And don't be afraid to start to look in the ad platform of or ads manager of your platforms and pay for some of your ads. It could be Facebook and Instagram. It might be LinkedIn, more expensive, but it could be depending on your audience. But definitely, I'm sure you're going to need to run some search ads. So if you're selling a product that you want people to find, you want to run search, maybe you want to run display, maybe some YouTube, maybe some retargeting so they go to your site, you hit them up after, or maybe you just want to focus on where they're located and run ads right to that location. Continuing on with paid advertising, as you can see by another one of our clients, we really focus the ads on the location. So it's a northern audience, great, but we also say from Emu to Wawa and beyond, we're here to help. So we get very targeted with where we're running these ads, and that's the great thing about paid advertising. You can really, really target where you're going. And, with car dealers, another interesting thing with paid advertising, something to think about, it doesn't always have to be ads that are translating straight to that sell. With car dealers, it's again that lead generation. Maybe it's, they're going to run an ad for someone to fill out a credit app, or someone to fill out information about a car, or a service. They want someone to click on an ad because they want them to schedule a service appointment. So when you're thinking about setting up your paid advertising during your strategy, think about, what do I want to achieve? Do I want to get a sale? Do I just want to have someone create an estimate with me? Like, what does it look like? And that works with paid advertising as well. And then moving towards the end of the webinar, I can't stress this enough. You've spent all this time and energy on this great marketing strategy. You've got everything outlined. You know what you're doing. You want to, as you're going through the process of implementing your strategy, measuring. Test the ads on a regular basis. Don't just put some ads out there and leave them. Make sure that they're actually working. Try different ads to see what performs better. You'd be surprised when we change one word of copy in one ad, how much more traffic we get from changing one word. So play with it. You can't break it. Change up your ad copy, make it different so that you can see if that copy change really gets a different result. And try new things. Try different artwork. Be creative, try new ads, getting really, really involved with social and digital media and getting active on it is the best way for you to see results. Start to learn it, start to, change up things. You'll start to see what your audience engages with and then work on that and continue to grow with that. So that's my quick 45 minutes. I could talk about, marketing, digital, social, but I guess my big takeaways are in 2020, the biggest thing that I want to talk about is making sure that before you implement your strategy, that you put your website, your branding, and how your social looks as part of your strategy to make sure that that's all set up properly before you even spend the money to get the rest of your ads and your creative going, because you don't want to drive people to a website that's broken or a social media page that's not set up properly. So that is my big takeaway. And the other big thing that I want you to think about is you do sometimes have to think about paying for ads. You pay for radio, you pay for some of these other things. Social and digital ads are still really, really cheap for the amount of engagement that you're going to get. So just that organic traffic now in 2020 is not enough.
Well, thank you, Susan. That was wonderful. Some great information that you shared there, and some that I've taken away myself. Does anybody have any questions for Suzanne? If you can type them in the chat box. I don't see any in there right now. But you talked about paid advertising on Facebook. Like, how much would a small business have to spend to get traffic? Like, if they have their page all set up and everything, their branding and their website and all that.
So Facebook ads are still really inexpensive. And even we have noticed during the last 3 months, Facebook ad costs have gone up. So if you were running ads, 6 months ago, you would have had to pay a little bit less, but still proportionately in Northwestern Ontario, Facebook ads for $150 to $200 a month ad spend, you're going to get quite a bit of traffic. And that is, not a huge budget for a small business that wants to just start to get information out. Anyway, I wouldn't even spend more than $500 on Facebook ads in a month in Northwestern Ontario, because it's such a small area with 130 to maybe even, if you go broader, 200,000 people. They're gonna see your message. They're gonna see your ads for that budget. But I've even got clients starting at 150, 200 that are starting to see some great results from boosting out some of that content.
Okay, and you're talking about content, so like you're talking about videos and all that. Is that something that they can do themselves, or do they have to go out and hire somebody to do that?
You know what? With the new iPhones now, if you get a little bit creative, I see a lot of organic videos that companies are doing on their own. And the best thing to do is see how people engage with it. So if you put out a video that people engage with, then take that video and sponsor it. So put some ad dollars behind that video. It's an organic video. It wasn't something that was professionally done. That's okay. But you start to see 800 views, 1,000 views. You know that people already are engaging with it. So go ahead and put some of that sponsored, we call them sponsored ads, put that ad money behind that, and all of a sudden you're getting 2,000 views, 3,000, because it's going to spread to a bigger audience. It doesn't have to always be professional videography, which is great if we could all afford professional videography all the time, but we all can't afford to have that every time we want to release a video.
Yeah, we have one comment here from Darlene. She says, depends on target audience though for the cost. So I'm assuming she's talking about Facebook.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it depends. If you're gonna see, what we find with Facebook ads is once you run them for a long time, you're really gonna start to see a narrower audience, and you're gonna take away spending the ad dollars on a broader audience. So as you continue to run your ads, you're gonna over time say, well, kind of what I talked about at the beginning. So maybe my demographic is a 40-year-old woman, but I'm gonna start to notice that there are trends behind what that demographic is engaging with me, and then my ad dollars aren't going to be as wide because I'm not going to target everyone anymore. I'm going to keep narrowing down based on the results that I'm getting from the ads. So then you will spend less over time. I don't run the ads, Ashley does, so she knows more about that, but I hear her all the time saying, no, let's, narrow down your target audience, because why are we wasting money targeting people that are not engaging right now with your page? So I think over time it becomes more cost effective.
Yeah, so looking at the insights of your ads as you're running them, that provides some great information there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we have another question from Jamie. She says, as a business owner, do we need to keep in mind the accessibility standards for marketing and promotional materials?
So are we talking about online, I think?
Jamie, can you clarify?
Like more web-driven?
Yeah, I know websites have to be have accessibility standards, right?
For sure. As far as with social media, there are so many regulations and requirements behind even being allowed to put an ad up on Instagram or Facebook. Everything that we post gets critiqued and has to be approved by Facebook and Instagram. So we're at the mercy of whatever their accessibility standards are, I would assume. So the size of the font, right? You can't have too much text because it's not legible. Those type of things are things that Facebook and Instagram require. So I'm not sure if that's what they meant, but W3, yeah. So all the websites that you have to develop now should definitely follow those standards and be accessible for sure. Yeah.
Oh, Darlene also mentions TikTok.
So what I'm telling my clients with TikTok, a lot of my clients are not really comfortable yet marketing on TikTok, but what I tell them now is get creative on TikTok and then put that on Instagram or on Facebook. So everybody here has probably already seen a really big trend that when you're on your Instagram and Facebook now, you look and you can see that it came originally from TikTok. So you might not have enough of your audience on TikTok at this point because it's so new, depending on who you're marketing to, but you know that if you take those TikTok videos and you actually put them on Facebook and Instagram, you're going to get a ton of engagement because TikTok has so many cool features of adding music, adding effects, adding all these things that you can't do in Instagram or Facebook. So a lot of people are switching them over, right? So that's what I'm seeing as a huge trend is making TikToks for sure in TikTok. But if you don't have enough followers, taking that and putting that on your other social media and using that as some great content.
Okay, well, thank you, Suzanne. We're kind of over our time here now.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you for coming in and really enjoyed your presentation, and I'm sure those in the attendance did as well. There will be a replay that will be going out to all the people that registered. So whether they were able to attend or not, they'll still receive the replay, and then we'll also post it on our website.
Great.
So we do have another webinar coming up tomorrow with Charlton Thompson, and that's our financial literacy series, and that would be he'll be talking on credit and debt management. So that's another interesting topic, and I encourage all those that are in attendance today to register for that one as well. All right. Do you have any closing comments there, Susan?
No, it was my first webinar, so I appreciate everyone who was on it. I mean, I've spoken, as Dawn knows, in front of people, but with everything changing, it's a little bit different because you don't quite, don't have the people that are asking during the
Yeah,
things.
well, yeah, you have
Yeah,
very
but I everybody, made me feel comfortable, so it was great. Thank you very much. And for closing comments, definitely reach out if you have any questions. Everyone here is really, knowledgeable, so they can answer Facebook questions or things that sometimes I can't answer as well. So just, Dawn has my contact information, shoot us an email.
Yeah. If you need to get her information, just email info@nadf.org, and I'll be happy to share that with you.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.